Hi everybody, Peter here, and this week's video kind of slipped through the cracks a little bit because I went to the Titanic exhibition and I posted that video of having a look around, seeing what was there. It was a very good time, but then I did an interview with a man called Dik Barton. Now he's the fellow who's been to the Titanic many times, he's explored the wreck. He's the fellow who took the polystyrene cups down to show the force of the pressure down at the Titanic. Like, they start as big polystyrene cups and then they shrink down into tiny things. So I was thinking, why didn't I post this video before? And there's two reasons why. The first reason is because when you watch the video, you're going to notice that my gimbal, which I had it on, is focused on me. So I'm standing next to Dick, and it'll be like, oh, it's following me, it's following me. So like, I have to get awkwardly close to Dick at times, so to get him in the frame as well. So there's that. And also, it doesn't sound the best. And the reason why is because, and this is going to sound like an advert, you won't believe what I bought on the TikTok shop for just £3. But it's not, I promise. I bought these off Amazon, so I didn't buy them off the TikTok shop. And I thought, this is a great place to try it. I'll put one on Dick, I'll put one on me, and you'll see what happens. So this is my interview with Dik Barton about the Titanic. Enjoy. This is the Peter Greenwood Show, and I am at the Titanic exhibition in Glasgow, and to my right is a gentleman who knows a little bit about the ship. Could you tell me your name and what you do, please?
Yeah, hi Peter. My name's Dik Barton. I was the first Briton to dive the Titanic, and have since then done 22 dives on the wreck. And as you say, know a bit about it.
When did your obsession with the Titanic, and I'm going to use the word obsession because you don't come to here unless you're a little bit obsessed with the ship, I would say.
Well, I actually don't claim obsession with Titanic.
Okay.
I claim obsession with deep sea operations, diving, exploration, and that. And Titanic, of course, is the ultimate prize.
Yeah.
So to dive the wreck, which is the ultimate, most well known, probably not the most tragic, but most well known wreck in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that very first dive, what do you remember about it? Is it something that you remember vividly, or is it something that...
Yeah, it's totally ingrained in every way. So it was back in 1993, which is probably way before most of your listeners even were around or
I
think
was
being thought
about,
about.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I was 7.
There you go.
7 years old.
Well, I wasn't. And so I was recruited from Hong Kong to be the director of operations, joined the organization, learned a bit about driving submersibles, and we went to sea. So we were the French company Ifremer at the time,
Yep.
in the North Seal.
Yep.
And yeah, the first dive. So diving the wreck is hit and miss, because when you're released from the surface, the seabed is anyway you land. So there's always 4 dive profiles.
Yeah.
And depending on the trajectory. And I was fortunate enough to get it absolutely, well, the team got it absolutely right, and we landed smack next to the bow.
Which is pretty, I mean, that's kind of an iconic shot. It's been seen in the movie of coming up and there's the bow coming out of the darkness. When you see that in person, what does that feel like?
Well, we were about 20 meters off the northwest of the bow, hovering above the seabed, and we spun and looked at it, and you see it. Then we start to rise and climb with it, and you realize the actual magnitude and size of the bow, and it's quite encapsulating, and it's very hard to really correlate where you are. You've already spent the best part of 2 hours in the submersible descending to the wreck site, and then after that you have to think about, well, actually, do you know what? Out of the Titanic now.
Yeah.
But then you have to think, well, actually, the reason I'm here is to do a job.
Yeah.
So it's not a tourist dive. So it's a conflict, but an incredible experience.
And it must be incredibly emotional as well, because once you get over the I'm at the Titanic, you think about what happened for the Titanic to be where it is.
Yeah,
what was that
absolutely.
like?
I mean, yeah, it's very important to retain that due reverence and understand what it's about. But also, with the company RMS Titanic Incorporated, our mandate was to be the guardian of the wreck. We were the right of salvor in possession, so we had to document her deterioration, and then recover artifacts for worldwide exhibition. So our responsibility was quite deep and meaningful, something we took very seriously.
What's been the most I don't want to say interesting, but the most memorable thing that you found at the wreck site, and
Yeah.
were you able to bring that up?
So yes, we brought it up, but it wasn't not by intention. So on the bucket of the Nautil, the French submersible, we'd often put into their artifacts using the articulated arms, and inevitably the shovel we'd pick up detritus from the seabed. When we got to the surface, that was absolutely scrupulously cleaned and washed out. And I jumped out, and we were doing it with the guys on board, and we picked up the big artifacts, the big things that we could obviously see, and they went into conservation. But in the mud, in the bottom of that bucket, that great big, huge sieve, were two marbles, one broken, one complete, stone marbles, and that was very poignant to me. The story of that. There were children on board, and they could have been lost in the mud and debris of the seabed, and we just by chance found them. Yeah. But they're on exhibition now, and they're very popular.
And even those two small marbles, everything tells a tale. Everything is something that tells a story from the Titanic.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty of Titanic. Whether you're 6 or 96, there's an appeal to the wreck, the story, the science, the history, the archaeology, the romance, the excitement. Every single aspect is something there for you.
And 5,500 items have been brought up. Over 5,500 items have been brought up.
8,500.
8,500.
Yeah.
Wow. Has there been something where you're like, I want this so much, I want to put it on my mantelpiece, but I won't? What's that item
part
like?
of my mandate was operations, was also the security and accountability of the artifacts. So we meticulously archived and recorded every single piece, because that was also our obligation. If we touched it, we had to conserve it and stabilize it. So I think, at the risk of being blasé, there was no one particular thing that I thought I would particularly like to own. I think my memory and my privileged experience was probably enough.
One of my most treasured items is, I remember seeing it in a book when I was yay high, is one of the chandeliers that hangs from the ceiling. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Well, again, they weren't chandeliers; they were light fittings, which had fallen.
Yes.
And initially our first Robin photographs imagery showed, as we went to the grand staircase and the area, these things hanging from the ceiling, and everyone's, oh, chandeliers, marvelous. But actually, they just obviously loosened from the bulkhead and hung down off their cable.
Yeah. So, what current state is the Titanic in? And would you go back? Are you going back at some point to see her again?
There's two questions there, and the easy one is no, I'm not going back. Partly because I passed my sell-by date on that. But there's no way to get back on a manned submersible. They're rebuilding Nautil right now, refurbishing her. I'm not quite sure whether manned trips to the site will go through some serious scrutiny, obviously following the Titan disaster last year. And it's an extraordinary privilege to go back, but I'm not sure realistically how commercially viable that is in the immediate future.
With everything that did happen with the Titan, is it possible that there will be no more manned expeditions to the ship?
I think it's going to be much more heavily legislated, but the authorities and the approving authorities who look at submersibles, dive submersibles, are very responsible. And it was only the maverick approach of OceanGate which really broke that mold. It was a great shame, because it didn't need to be. The ongoing investigation obviously will have conclusion, but it's very apparent that there was a disregard for safety, and really should never have happened. All these things are avoidable, and that's the idea of investigation, to risk assessing and hopefully avoid repetition.
If the Titanic was a person, if she was a lady, she was standing right in front of you, what would you like to say to her? What words would you have for her?
Oh, just a massive thank you. And she was one of three of the most magnificent moving ships of her time. The opulence and the incredible detail on board her, which is still apparent today. Everything you see in the exhibition here and more. She's a time capsule and an absolute privilege to have ever been involved with. So, huge respect to her, and as I say, big thank you.
Her beauty will never fade.
Indeed not.
Dick, thank you so much for your time
pleasure.
today.
Thanks, Billy. All the best. Cheers.